2 new tools that could be a game changer when working on your gouging machine. Coming up next. Hi guys, I'm Robin Driscoll and I'm with Opus1 Gougers, and this is my YouTube channel, and we're talking about today 2 new tools that I have created to help adjust a gouger and to get numbers for the different measurements you have with the gouger, like how much blade is exposed, for example. Instead of just going by the chip, which is often done in the past, we have now a little dial indicator which can help take a direct reading of how much blade is exposed over the front guide and gives you much more control. Now in the past, I have used something like this, which is a little apparatus I created, which the carriage goes inside here, and this little indicator measures off the front guide, and then I slide it forward and measure then how much blade is exposed over that, and so I can get a direct number reading, which is very helpful in keeping things consistent and diagnosing problems. For example, if your center measurement of the cane is changing from end to end, that is oftentimes caused by the blade ripping a little bit by having too much blade exposed. But it could be also the parallels being out of set and not being parallel. And I've got a second tool which will deal with that in a second. But this first tool helps first at least make sure that the blade is exposed correctly, and that if it is ripping, that the problem is someplace else. So what I've created is this tool, and it is really quite cool. It has a little platter inside there. You can see it goes up and down. That's what the guide and blade touch to get the measurement. And the guide goes in between these 2 little walls, and then rests on these 2 mounds on the bottom here and against this one mound on the top up here. And so you have 3 points of contact, and it gives you very consistent, repeatable measurements. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take the gouger, and we want to put the indicator on there on the front guide, just in front of the blade, okay? And then what you want to do is you want to zero it at that point. So now I have that set to 0. So I know how tall now the blade, the guide is. And then the next step is to loosen it slightly, pull down the anvil to the indicator, slide it forward until the anvil is now touching the blade. And it's important to pull the anvil up first, because you don't want to actually, run into the blade and damage it. But you just lift it and place it back down, then it'll be set correctly. Now, you can look here and see that I'm reading at about a little bit under 0.04 of a millimeter exposure of the blade on the front guide. And that, in my mind, is a little bit too small exposure. I like to have about 5. So what I'm going to do is I will then put my Allen wrench into the drive screw. I want to push some blade down. So I'm going to go here, and then you'll watch the blade. See the needle change down to 0.05. And then when it's set, I lock it down. Now it's still pretty tight, the nut. I don't have to loosen this a lot to make a motion. So I will just take it, and so it's still, I can loosen this a little bit, but then I'll snug it back, the lock screw here. Because you don't want to be totally loose when you're doing this, because then when you tighten things up, things move. So I had it loosened a bit. I'll just do it right now so you can see. Loosen it, and then just go back until it's taut. Okay? And so then you can see the blade moved a bit from that. So I'm going to now take this, and I'm going to turn it back, and you can see the blade goes right to 0.05 hundredths of a millimeter. And then I will right that back. And I have to adjust it a bit more there, because tightening it will cause things to shift just a bit. So I want to push a bit more down until it reads at 0.05. There we go. Okay, now, interesting thing about this too is with this blade and guide, the blade and guide are built from each other. And so the guide follows the blade. And so when you want to set your gouger up, put the blade in between look down let me take this off. Sight down the guide, looking at the blade, exposure over the front guide, and get it pretty centered side to side. It should disappear at the same spot on both the inside and both the outside of the curve. And then once that's set and you're in the middle, and that's done with these side adjustment screws, this one here and this one back here. These two push the blade. Tightening this pushes this way, tightening this one pushes the blade this way. And so when they're finished, they should be pretty tight together. So we want to keep going back and forth until the blade is centered on the guide and these are both equally tight. Then I will go there and I'll make sure this is, snug, not super tight, but just snug. Okay, now it's centered with the guide. Then I'll take my indicator. Remember to pull the anvil up and place it back down on the blade. And then you can then take your measurement, see I'm still a 5. Because this references off this guide. So the 0 point for this gouger has now been set, and that will stay that way unless you move this dial or something. So so then I'll put it back outside there. You can see I'm still reading 0.05 millimeters. But if I was too small or too small exposure, I'll tighten the screw to push it down as I did a second ago. Or if I'm showing too much, I'll back it out until it's showing 0.05 hundredths of a millimeter. Then when all said and done, I will loosen this, take it off, and then give this a nice snug so it's good and tight. And this for good merit, I'll go back and I'll recheck it. Pulling out the anvil again, always do that. You see there? And it's good. I went slightly under after tightening the main bolt. So in that case, what I'll do is I will then tighten this just a bit, which brings back up to 5, and then we're in good shape. And the reason you could do that is because this is a thread pushing down on this blade, whereas this is just a screw tightening onto it. And so this force is not as strong as this force. So pushing this screw down some can overpower this lock screw and give you some more exposure even though you didn't loosen that screw to make the change. So that's how that works. And so this is a really, really valuable tool. And I've just worked on getting all the programming set for it. So it will be available soon on the website. So keep an eye out for that. And I think it's going to be very popular. I mean, this is really, really a wonderful tool. And the second thing we have here is another dial indicator setup, which is mounted to a bracket, and this is already on the website. And what happens is the new gougers have a little hole drilled in the center of the front guide. And this little pin anvil for this dial indicator goes down through that hole and touches the bed, okay? And so what happens is that now you can actually see what the blade sees with the gouger. So it compares the bed distance to the blade distance in essence. So you can go from side to side. I have it turned slightly this way so I can have access to this lock screw in the back here. You can position this however you want to, but I like to have it slightly turned so I have access to this screw to make changes in thickness on this style gouger over here. This one over here has a wheel, so it's an older model. So what you can do is you could then move this along the bed and you can watch the 0 point as you travel from side to side. And if that needle changes, that means there's a good chance that the parallels might not be parallel. And that could be either because they're screwed in and they canted slightly when you retighten the screw. So you can just check that to make sure. And by doing that, what you're going to find when you gouge cane is you're going to have a piece of the piece of cane will be thinner at certain spots than other spots. Generally at the ends it'll be thinner. And so this way you can find out, well, it could be the blade ripping causing that to happen, or it could be the parallels or the bed being off slightly. So this way you can eliminate your variables. If you use the blade exposure meter and you're getting 0.05, there's a good chance you're not ripping with the blade because that's a good exposure amount. If you're showing like 0.07, 8, or 9, then that could be the problem of why the center measurement is changing from end to end. But if that is good, this tool can tell you now is it the parallels. So that's a cool thing. So you can then get the parallels adjusted and so they read flat the whole way, and then that should fix the problem. And a secondary thing this tool can do is that when I'm changing the center measurement of my gouge, this is reading in millimeters like we do with our micrometer reading cane. And so I could take this and I can sit here and right now if I want to make this gouge, let's say I have it 0 there, that sets at 60 for example, I could turn the dial here and you could see my center measurement is changing. And that measurement is going to be my center thickness of the gouge. And then so you could do really accurate adjustments of your center thickness with that as well, and keep records of what you're doing there. So these tools are really, really powerful, and they give you a lot of ability, especially if you feel comfortable taking your blade out and you want to change blades and you want to get things back into shape. This makes things, you could change your blade in a matter of seconds, and all of a sudden you could be confident that things are back where they need to be. So please keep an eye on the website to see when these will be available. Like I said, this particular tool here is currently available, but the blade exposure indicator will be done very soon. I just finished the coding for that, but I've got to figure out how that's all going to work when it's all put together in production. So please follow the channel for more information on other things too. We're always trying to innovate here to make life easier for gouging cane. And also follow our channel on the Oboe Doctors. It's another YouTube channel that I have with Dana Sundet. And we talk about all kinds of things related to young oboe players in studying oboe and learning new tricks for the instrument and ways of doing things. So I hope you enjoyed these channels, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.